Music producers, here is one major mixing problem that a lot of us make, including your boy Curtis King. I'm still learning, y'all. Music producers, my buddy Oh Gosh Leotis, who in my eyes is, one of the best producers that I've ever come across. I love listening to him make beats and watching his process. And, I love how lively his production comes through, and the fact that when he sends his stuff off to engineers, they don't cuss him out like they cuss me out, because he does something that a lot of producers don't do, and his sound still comes together and it comes full force strong when people listen to it. He leaves headroom. Now, what is headroom? Now, I'm going to give you the Curtis King definition. From what I understand it is, when you're looking at your meter, right? Your meter, your sound meter, your level meter, your volume meter, that's basically telling you, look, when sound hits that zero, this is pretty much, look, if you go over this line, it's going to start peaking and distorting, right? So basically, it's when the levels are going up, right? When you leave headroom, you are either having to where that threshold of that particular volume either reaches the zero, or it reaches 3 decibels below that zero, or just pretty much any numbers between that the zero and then the negative numbers under, so like -3 decibels under. So basically, you're leaving room not just for the rapper who's rapping over it, because there's nothing worse than when a rapper gets a beat and then it's just blasting through and they can't even gather their thoughts or even hear their voice over it. But it's terrible, 10 times more terrible for the engineer who's sitting there with your beat, and the beat sounds amazing as is, but you've already put your limiter on it. You already put, you're blasting all these different sounds on it, and it just comes out just so distorted by the time they turn the beat up. You're giving no room for the engineer to turn the beat up with the vocals. And so when they 2-track mix it, it just sounds terrible. Same thing when they have the track outs of your actual beat. You've already, pushed these sounds already up. And what I've always been taught is that when it comes to vocals, when it comes to sounds, it's a lot easier to turn up, a lot doable to turn up sounds than it is to turn them down once they've already distorted. Once they distort it, it's over with. You need to either go back to the drawing board, re-record it, or, go back to the mix and drawing board. So that being said, something that I'm learning right now, and something that I didn't really understand the importance of, because, my beats are all about them drums. My drums come smacking through. The sounds got to just be super aggressive. This is my sound. That's my attitude, my energy. But it presented a lot of problems for a lot of my customers. That's part of my rebranding now, is that I'm learning how to properly mix my beats in a way to where, they still come through powerful, but they leave room for another instrument to be added to it. What instrument am I talking about? The voice. The voice is another instrument. So one major mistake that a lot of producers make is feeling like their beats have to sound like the beats that they hear on the radio. Like, by the time you hear a song on the radio, it has gone through the mixing, it has gone through the mastering, and the mixing itself has brought all the levels down and has basically leveled everything up. And then by the time it goes to mastering, that's when everything is being turned up. So you trying to compare your mixing with somebody else's mastering is the ultimate no-no. And that's a problem that I was having, was that I was like, man, from the mixing stages when I'm working on this beat in FL Studio, I want this thing to sound like that Metro Boomin beat that's out right now. But that's just not the way that the process happens. You gotta leave some headroom. So what I'm learning is really pay attention to your levels, especially on FL Studio. Pay attention to every individual channel and just turn things down where they need to be turned down. Like, obviously certain instruments, are meant to be closer to the zero, such as the kick, such as, the snares. Those are probably the loudest things in your hip hop beats, depending on what style you make. For me, that's what the loudest are. That being said, I know everything else is pretty much relative to that. The 808 is relative to the kick. The snare is relative to the kick as well. Or the hi-hats are falling a little bit middle in between. And really, at the end of the day, once you understand the science of it and the technicalities of it, now you're just going by ear. But understand, you gotta leave headroom. And most times, the headroom is being occupied by you pushing up the bass sound, pushing up the kicks, and pushing up the pianos, and trying to get everything to basically, have its time to shine, when in all actuality, it's supposed to be music. It has to be perfectly harmonious. Everything has to be all within harmony. So one of the biggest mistakes that I've been making, and I hope you learn from my mistake as I start to, it's crazy. I put these acoustics in here and I still have to learn how to mix better within my headphones because I'm in an apartment. I'm learning now. You must have the headroom. For those of you, if you even think about jumping in my comments and saying, well, duh, everybody, shut yourself up. I had to censor myself so they won't take my monetization off my videos. That's another story. Thanks, PewDiePie. But here's the thing about it. Leave some headroom for your particular beats as you're submitting these off and as you're putting them up on your beat store. No, they don't have to sound like the end product. You got to make sure that they sound like they have the headroom for somebody to work with it and add their vocals, and for an engineer to get it. Stop trying to make your stuff sound like it's immediately on the radio. That's not the way to go about it. I don't care who you heard or what you heard. That is not the way to go about it. Leave some headroom for these folks to work with, and your life will be so much easier. Once again, it's another Curtspiration. Dude, if you need some more of this juice, please subscribe to the channel below. Be part of the notification gang. Hey. Thank you to all my Patreon supporters, patreon.com/CurtisKing. And you tell me, what have you learned in terms of mixing techniques that a lot of producers use that they can be doing 10 times better? You tell me what you think they could be doing better. You tell me that, your experiences within, the headroom. Pause. Headroom. You figure out whether or not, or actually just share. I should say that. Share your particular philosophy when it comes to mixing, what you found has worked. Now, I know that this headroom situation is very important. I'm learning. Your boy's still learning. I'll never stop learning, because in this life, you will not be full of life until you decide to live life to its fullest. Curtis King of CurtisKingBeats.com. I can't listen to you. When I listen to you, it's a liability, cause you be mentally killing my inner energy. So I'm concealing my feelings before you injure me.